placements would have already started and आप लोगों ने preparations तो start कर ही दी होंगी. Correct. So Josh Technology Group has also started its hiring for 2023 batch in its full swing, and so must have other companies in the industry. So do you think you are prepared enough? Whenever the placement season approaches, the first thing that the students start doing is start brushing up their coding skills. The moment you step into your seventh semester, सिर्फ एग्जाम्स क्लियर करना ही फोकस नहीं होता है. You also start focusing upon your placements, right? And तब शुरू होती है कोडिंग स्किल्स सीखने की शुरुआत. Of course, there are a few जो फर्स्ट सेमेस्टर या सेकंड सेमेस्टर में भी स्टार्ट कर ही देते होंगे, right? So obviously, because core software development companies जो होती हैं, they look out for good coders. Correct. So do you think that you are actually prepared in a way that you will be able to crack these interviews by not just honing your coding skills but also focusing upon the overall aspect of the selection process? So, as we connect today through this session, we shall be discussing upon how you can crack the tech interviews for the software developer profile. Okay, so we have with us the tech maestros of JTG who have gained expertise in their respective domains and will share their insights on how you can ace the tech interviews. Okay, so if I talk about the panel members, we have Alicia Agarwal, Priya Hayat, Swiksha Singh, and Gurpreet Singh with us, who have worked upon multiple technologies and tech stacks throughout the tenure with us. They carry with themselves an industry experience of more than 7 years. Okay, so not only do they excel in their respective technical fields, but they also have an experience in taking the technical interview rounds. So when I say taking technical interview rounds, I would like take the liberty of saying that they must have taken at least 500 interviews each in their professional career. And trust me, I'm not exaggerating, guys. Okay, so you can understand with their knowledge in hand, we would be able to understand from their interviewer's point of view what interviewers think about, right? कि वो actually क्या हमसे expect करते हैं as students, and how you as students should prepare in order to excel in your technical interview process, right? So we shall be starting with the webinar now. Any questions or queries regarding the role or the presentation, right? You might must be having a lot of questions when we start this webinar, right? So whenever you have any queries or questions, you can address at the we will be addressing it at the end of the webinar. However, if you have any questions like during the webinar, you please feel free to post it in the chat box, and we will take up all the questions at the end of the webinar in the panel discussion round. Okay, so let's get started with the presentation. Alicia, request you to please take ahead from here.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Nikita. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Good morning. How are you doing? I hope you're all doing good and excited about this. Actually, I am excited about this webinar because via this webinar, we would be sharing with you what is the actual interview process look like, what we look as an interviewer in that, and how you can do well. We will be sharing some of our tips and the points we think are important during any technical interview. So we would be we would be covering the following topics where we will first talk about the journey of a candidate, like what the process looks like generally, and then what is the goal of our tech interviews, what do we really as an interviewer look for in a candidate when we go in any interview process, then how you can prepare, and then in the last we will talk about how you can do well in your interviews, what skills you can work that will, sorry, give me a minute. Yeah, that will make your interview go well. All right, so let's start with the first topic. Yeah, so journey of a candidate. So basically this is how your whole process will look like, guys. First is an application process where we usually have a process each company that you guys apply for it. I'm sure you must have started doing this process. There must be some site through which they have fill some forms and fill out. So you basically apply for it, and then we have a shortlisting process where they could be based on some of your academic scores, because in the end each companies have a limited number of seats, so we do have a shortlisting process also in between. And post that we have the written round. Now written rounds can be, different ways on the different companies. There could be these aptitude tests we have, which would be analytical skills or logical reasoning. And apart from that, the aptitude test, another aspect which is very very popular is your technical. Just maybe have MCQs, multi choice questions, and those your coding questions, subjective questions, where a problem is given to you, which could be based on the DSA and algorithms. So these are the basically different rounds we have in terms of written round, and then it comes the technical interview round, where we basically is more what different from the written round is it's a one-on-one conversation. So there are few skills which comes in play apart from the technical aspect here, that we will discuss in detail now is the technical round. इसके बाद आता है we then have is HR round. So where basically usually HRs have an discussion with the candidate where they see whether they are good fit for the company or not, and they help you to understand what company offers, and so you can judge what whether the company is a good fit for you or not. So that is basically a discussion, and then after that all these the offer letters are being you know made out, and that like closes the process. So this is basically hamari journey step by step. Moreoverly, every journey looks like this for all the companies. Um all right, so this is your journey. Now let's move forward to the next one, which is your goal of the tech interviews. So first, सबसे पहले ना we'll talk कि जो हमारा इंटरव्यू होता है उसकी इंटरप्रिटेशन क्या होती है सब. इट्स वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि वो हमें क्या स्किल सेट्स लुक अप कर रहे हैं, हाउ वी कैन डू like see understand what interviewers are looking for. Okay, so candidate is basically हमारे कुछ parameters होते हैं. We have listed out a few parameters. I'll talk them about them, on which we judge our candidate. So first one being your problem solving skill, guys. You will hear that a lot in this presentation. So basically we evaluate कि आप technically in this interview कि आप कितना how you think out of box, कितने flexible हो, how you look at the problem when you're stuck, how you take it look at from the different perspective, how you approach your problem and break it down and solve it. So basically problem solving skills we check for on you guys for that. And then we have is next is your communication and confidence. So communication skills and confidence, this is the next most important thing which comes plays very very important role in interviews, because ये सब written round में it's not possible to judge. So it is very important that you are very comfortable in your in communicating. You how confident you are, how clear you are in your verbal communication, your communication and your written communication. You need to be able to have a confidence to express your thought. You don't need to be nervous here. So this is we judge how you are communicating with us, how is your body language, what is your you know how you are actually basically trying to grasp what I'm saying. That is also a part of communication, understanding what the other person is saying. So that is the point, and the next come is your overcoming the challenges. So this is a important skill which will help you in your interview as well as in your professional career ahead, which is yeah, how do you face the difficult situation. Do you panic or you stay calm? How do you react when you get stuck at some point, and how do you approach to those challenging questions and different tough scenarios you face during an interview. So that is another thing which you should look out, how should I react to it and how should I behave in that sense. Next is your willingness to learn. So this is where you have to show to your interviewer how curious you are technically, right? And how do you can show that how will in your introduction also, like how willingly you are, how passionate about your work you are. So how will you learn from the different scenarios which you are facing. Next would be our self motivation. So like during an interview is a complete process, guys. You come to the interview and you might face a problem, so you need to be very self motivated here. So do you so you need to trust your abilities in preparation. Do not get struck. move on. So you have to be self motivated by yourself. Definitely the interviewer is always trying to be more motivating to their candidates, but there is a ability that you do not give up and try to always, stay motivated. So basically these are different skill sets which we look for any candidate: problem solving, communication, your confidence, your overcoming challenge abilities, your willingness, your interest, and then the self motivation whenever we go through an interview process. So back to you, Nikita, for the next.
Thank you, Alicia. So I hope, guys, you all were able to understand how the selection process looks like. Right? What are the different parameters on which you would be evaluated in your future placements? Definitely, the process differs from company to company, but it is like a standard process that is being followed by different companies. Okay. Again, I would like to reiterate my statement. अगर कहीं पे भी कोई confusion हो रहा है, कोई doubt है, you have a question in mind, please feel free to put it in the chat box. Okay, and we will take it up at the end of the webinar. All right. So now let's understand from our colleague Priya on how one should prepare for the interview so that he or she can do well in the interview process. Okay. Priya, can you please take this up?
Yes, sure, Nikita. Okay, guys. So far we have talked about the journey of the candidate, where we look through all the steps that a candidate has to go through. Some of you guys might already be going through it, or might go on as the company's approaches to your colleges. And then we also looked upon into the goal of the interviews. We saw how an interview looks from the perspective of an interviewer. Now, the next thing that we need to know, now that we know how the process works, the next thing we need to know is how we can prepare for the process. So, just before we start with the pointers, I just want you to know that, guys, preparation is very important. I think as engineering students, हम सब लोगों की आदत होती है कि हम लोग बहुत लास्ट मिनट प्रिपेयर करते हैं. इवन अगर हमारे सेमेस्टर एग्जाम्स भी होते हैं, हम थोड़े दिन पहले ही प्रैक्टिस करना स्टार्ट करते हैं या सिलेबस गो थ्रू करना स्टार्ट करते हैं, एंड मोस्टली शायद सेमेस्टर एग्जाम्स उस अप्रोच से चल जाते हैं. बट आपके अगर टेक्निकल इंटरव्यूज की मैं बात करूं, तो वो उस अप्रोच से नहीं चल पाएंगे, मैक्सिमम केसेस में नहीं चलेंगे. सो उसके लिए आपका प्रिपरेशन करना बहुत ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है, एंड इट इज इंपॉर्टेंट दैट यू स्टार्ट योर प्रिपरेशन एज अर्ली एज पॉसिबल. इट्स नॉट कि कोई टाइमलाइन है कि अगर यहाँ इस टाइम तक आपने स्टार्ट नहीं किया तो आप नहीं कर पाओगे. आप जब भी स्टार्ट करना चाहो आप अपनी प्रिपरेशन स्टार्ट कर सकते हो, बट अगर आप अर्ली स्टार्ट करते हो तो स्ट्रेस थोड़ा कम होता है, एंड यू आर मोर रिलैक्स्ड एंड यू हैव लेस थिंग्स टू कवर इन द एंड. So I think starting a preparation as early as possible is like the best thing you can. So the first pointer here is that at exact same point, that start preparing early, and start dedicating some time on daily basis or weekly basis or monthly basis, where you are just focusing on preparation of your technical interviews. So it does not have to be just daily or just weekly or just monthly. It could be some schedule that is very customized to you, that works for you. The focus here is that you have a dedicated time out of your schedule and you are consistently following it. Like it's not something that you made a schedule, जो हम लोगों की आदत होती है कि हम स्टार्टिंग में schedule बनाते हैं, थोड़े दिन follow करते हैं, then छोड़ देते हैं. So आपको एक ऐसा एक टाइम फ्रेम निकालना है जो आप कंसिस्टेंटली फॉलो कर सको. ठीक है. The next thing that you need to focus on is basically locking in your data structures and computer algorithms. So basically यहाँ पर how can you start going about it? So first get yourself familiarized with all the data structures. So like trees, arrays, linked lists. So we know that there are some advanced data structures out there, be it double linked list or BST or Minheap, Maxheap. But if you really look closely into these data structures, you would get to know that these are basically extensions of these basic data structures only. And if you have really expertise in these data structures, you have solved all kind of questions with these, and you have a basic understanding of what those advanced data structures are, then I think you do not have to practice all the questions with those data structures as well. Here, I think the most important thing is knowing the basics correctly. Now, the next thing after you have familiarized with your data structures is getting your concepts right. So you need to focus on the concepts more. So there could be a number of concepts that are involved in data structures, but then there are some basic ones that are that give birth to much more advanced concepts. So like recursion, tree traversal, search algorithms. So whenever I talk about search algorithms, there are some basic ones like bubble sort, insertion sort, which if you know, then you can go about into the advanced data structures. Because if you have the basic correct, you would be able to devise the advanced algorithms by yourself, even if you have not read about them. So I think those are really important, and getting your concepts is very important. Now the next thing that you need to focus on is basically understanding the time complexity and space complexity. So now that you are solving a number of problems, you might have multiple approaches to the questions that you are trying to solve. And how would you get to know that which one is the most advanced one out of most optimized one out of them? So understanding the time complexities and the space complexity would really help you here. So some interviewer might want that they want the most space optimized solution, and some might go for the most time optimized solution. So if you are able to understand the time complexity and space complexity of the approaches that you have yourself devised right now, you would be able to find the most optimized one and go for it and start writing code for it. Okay. Now, the next thing that we need to focus on after we know what is our preparation material is practicing. So, how should you start practicing? So, there are multiple coding platforms out there. You all must already be practicing on that. So, there are platforms like Geeks for Geeks, Lead Code, and there are a number of platforms out there as well, where I think they have even hackathons. There are multiple tests going on I think weekly basis or championship, something like that, as well as there are questions that are categorized based on data structures, complexity level, as well as the companies that you are interviewing for. So you can start practicing on those platforms. But one thing that you really need to understand and go about it is that you need to solve all those problems all by yourself. So what happens when we go into a coding platform is that आप देखते हो वहां पर एक क्वेश्चन लिखा है एंड आप थोड़ी देर ट्राई करते हो एंड देन थोड़ी देर बाद आपको लगता है कि ओके मुझसे नहीं हो रहा है, मैं देख लेता हूँ कि अप्रोच क्या है, मुझे अप्रोच नहीं समझ में आ रही है, तो आप 5-10 मिनट्स ट्राई करते हो एंड देन आप सीधा वहां पर जाकर डिस्कशन देख लेते हो या फिर सोल्यूशन देख लेते हो, अप्रोच पढ़ लेते हो एंड आपको लगता है कि अच्छा अब तो मुझे समझ में आ गया, अब मैं कर सकता हूँ. But if you are doing this for all the questions, you are really not developing the approach for it. जो आपका प्रैक्टिस करने का मोटिव है, इट इज नॉट कि आपको सारे क्वेश्चंस पता होने चाहिए. आपका प्रैक्टिस का मोटिव ये है कि आप अप्रोच खुद से डिवाइस कर पा रहे हो, आप सोच पा रहे हो, आप उस डायरेक्शन में कर पा रहे हो, आप प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व कर पा रहे हो. सिर्फ क्वेश्चन को नंबर ऑफ क्वेश्चंस कंप्लीट करना आपका वहां पर मोटिव नहीं है, प्रैक्टिस करना आपका ज्यादा मोटिव है, समझना ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है कि आप अपने कंसेप्ट लगा पा रहे हो कि नहीं, आपने जितने सारे डेटा स्ट्रक्चर्स के बारे में पढ़ा, कंसेप्ट के बारे में पढ़ा, आप वो अप्लाई कर पा रहे हो कि नहीं. सो उस पर आपका ज्यादा फोकस होना चाहिए. दैट इज वाई आपको जो है प्रॉब्लम्स जो है वो खुद से सॉल्व करनी चाहिए. नाउ द नेक्स्ट थिंग दैट यू नीड टू डू इज बेसिकली रिव्यू योर कोड. So what is basically reviewing your code? So when we say that you need to review your code, यहाँ पर सिर्फ आपको अपनी अप्रोच रिव्यू नहीं करनी है, आपको ये देखना है कि जो अप्रोच आपने पहले दिमाग में सोची है एंड जो कोड आपने लिखा है, क्या वो एग्जैक्टली वैसे ही परफॉर्म कर रहा है. सो जब आप अपना कोड रिव्यू कर रहे हो, गो टू इट लाइन बाय लाइन. एक एक लाइन पढ़ो, देखो कि अच्छा जो वेरिएबल्स यूज करे हैं सारे डिफाइंड है कि नहीं, क्या ये सारे वेरिएबल्स यूज भी हो रहे हैं कि नहीं, क्या इतने वेरिएबल्स की नीड भी है कि नहीं, क्या मेरे लूप्स जो है वो डुप्लीकेट तो नहीं हो रहे हैं, मेरे एज केस से सारे के सारे कवर हो रहे हैं कि नहीं, कोई सिंटेक्स एरर तो नहीं है, कोई लॉजिकल एरर तो नहीं है, मेरा पॉजिटिव केस चल रहा है कि नहीं, मेरा नेगेटिव केस चल रहा है कि नहीं. सो आपको जो अपना कोड रिव्यू करना है, आपको मल्टीपल चीजें ध्यान रखनी है. तो जब आप प्रिपेयर कर रहे हो, सेल्फ प्रिपरेशन में भी आपको इन सब चीजों का ध्यान रखना है. क्वेश्चन खुद सॉल्व करना है, अप्रोच खुद सोचनी है, जो भी अप्रोच आपके दिमाग में है. अगर आपको लग रहा है कि ऑप्टिमाइज भी नहीं है, राइट अ कोड फॉर इट, देन चेक द सोल्यूशन, देन रिव्यू योर कोड एंड देन चेक द सोल्यूशन कि आपका कोडिंग प्लेटफॉर्म में क्या लिखा है. एंड देन आप ये चेक करो कि आप कहाँ पर थे एंड सामने वाली अप्रोच कहाँ थी, कहाँ आपने गड़बड़ करी, आप यहाँ तक क्यों नहीं पहुंच पाए. अच्छा अगर आप यहाँ तक पहुंच पाते कि आप ये चीज सॉल्व कर पाते. एंड जब आप हर एक क्वेश्चन के साथ ये अप्रोच जो है अप्लाई करते रहोगे, आप खुद देखोगे कि आप जो है वो करेक्ट अप्रोच पर अपने आप पहुंच पा रहे हो. शायद कई बार आप बेटर अप्रोच भी दे पाओगे जो शायद उस प्लेटफॉर्म पे लिखी है, आप ज्यादा ऑप्टिमाइज सोल्यूशन भी दे पाओ, ये भी पॉसिबल है. ठीक है. So now after that, the next thing you need to focus on, which would be applied to each and every question, is rightly interpreting your question. So जब आप प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हो, सबसे पहले आपको क्वेश्चन बहुत अच्छे से समझना है, बिकॉज जब आप सेल्फ प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हो, कोई और नहीं है आपके डाउट्स वगैरह वहां पर क्लियर करने के लिए, तो आपको खुद से ही क्वेश्चन अच्छे से समझना है, सारे एग्जाम्पल्स गो थ्रू करना है, देखना है कि आप कहीं कुछ मिस आउट तो नहीं कर रहे. कहीं पर ऐसा तो नहीं है कि कोई पेरेंट पॉइंटर गिवन था और आपने अपने सोल्यूशन में उसको यूज नहीं करा. ठीक है. सो आपको क्वेश्चन अच्छे से इंटरप्रेट करना है, सारे एग्जांपल्स देखने हैं, चेक करना है कि एग्जैक्टली किस किस केस में क्या आउटपुट होगा, एज केसेस ढंग से समझने हैं. देन उसके बाद आपको मल्टीपल अप्रोचेस फॉर्मुलेट करनी है. ठीक है. यू कैन स्टार्ट फ्रॉम द ब्रूट फोर्स एंड देन आप मल्टीपल धीरे धीरे ऑप्टिमाइज करके अलग अलग सोल्यूशन पे पहुंच सकते हो. देन आपको टाइम कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी चेक करनी है, स्पेस कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी चेक करनी है, देन सबसे एफिशिएंट सोल्यूशन पे पहुंचना है. देन उसके लिए आपको कोड लिखना स्टार्ट करना है. नाउ वंस यू आर राइटिंग कोड, आपको मेक श्योर करना है आप कोड रिव्यू कर रहे हो, इट इज बग फ्री, इट इज ऑप्टिमाइज्ड, आपने सारी कंडीशंस ऑप्टिमाइज करी हैं, आपने ये देखा है कि वेरिएबल्स अननेसेसरी तो नहीं है, जो भी हमने भी ऊपर डिस्कस करा रिव्यू के टाइम पे, वो सारे की सारी कंडीशंस आपको जो है अपने कोड पे देखनी है. एंड ये सारी चीजें आपको हर एक क्वेश्चन में करनी है. सो आप देखोगे कि जब बार बार आप ये हो रहा है कि आप शायद हर बार जो है स्टार्टिंग में ज्यादा वेरिएबल्स लिख रहे हो, या हर बार आपका डुप्लीकेशन हो रहा है, एक्स्ट्रा लूप्स हो रही है, और आप बार बार उसको लास्ट फिक्स करे जा रहे हो, करे जा रहे हो, करे जा रहे हो, तो एक टाइम के बाद ऐसा हो जाता है कि आपकी आदत हो जाती है कि जब फर्स्ट टाइम आप कोड लिख रहे हो, आप वही ऑप्टिमाइज लिखो, आप वहीं पर ही वेरिएबल्स जो है वो कम से कम ही यूज करना स्टार्ट कर दोगे, वो आपकी हैबिट बन जाती है. ठीक है. सो ये चीज पे आपको जो है हर क्वेश्चन पे अप्लाई करना है. Okay, now that we have practiced a number of questions, what you need to focus on next is the speed. So जब आप प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हो नॉर्मली, सो आप नॉर्मली टाइम बॉक्स नहीं कर रहे होते हो, आप शायद अपना टाइम लोगे, अगर आपसे क्वेश्चन नहीं हो रहा, आप 1 घंटा बैठ जाओगे, 2 घंटे बैठ जाओगे, या कहोगे कि आज मुझसे नहीं हो रहा, लेट मी ट्राई वंस अगेन टुमारो. ठीक है. बट जब आप एक्चुअल इंटरव्यू में बैठे हो, चाहे आपको एक्सप्लिसिटली कभी किसी ने बोला हो या नहीं बोला हो, जस्ट नो दैट हर एक इंटरव्यू क्वेश्चन में हमेशा टाइम लिमिट होगी, चाहे वो आपको बताएं या नहीं बताएं, चाहे आपको आधे घंटे से 1 घंटा बिठा दिया, 2 घंटा बिठा दिया, दैट डजंट मीन कि उस क्वेश्चन की कोई टाइम लिमिट नहीं है. देयर वुड ऑलवेज बी अ टाइम लिमिट. सो जब आप प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हो, एक बार जब आपकी एक स्पीड बन गई, एक हैबिट बन गई कि आप क्वेश्चन जो है अब कर पा रहे हो, आपको समझ में आ गया अप्रोच कैसे करनी है, आप सही सही से क्वेश्चन इंटरप्रेट कर पा रहे हो, सोल्यूशन निकाल पा रहे हो, तो उसके बाद आपको जो है अपनी स्पीड पे फोकस करना है. आपको टाइम कंस्ट्रेंट लगाने हैं. स्टार्टिंग में आप थोड़ा लीनियंट हो सकते हो खुद के साथ, बट धीरे धीरे टाइम के साथ आपको जो है वो टाइम लिमिट जो है वो कम करनी है. ठीक है. आई थिंक आपको अभी लास्ट में जो है एक टाइम रेफरेंस भी मिल जाएगा कि रफली आपको कितना टाइम जो है निकल लगाना चाहिए एक लो कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी, मीडियम या हाई कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी में, फॉर रेफरेंस. बट आपको ये ऑनलाइन भी ये चीजें मिल जाएंगी, एंड आप अपनी स्पीड के हिसाब से भी ये चीजें लगा सकते हो. एंड जैसे जैसे आप इंटरव्यू एक्सपीरियंस करोगे, आई थिंक आपको वो टाइम लिमिट थोड़ी पता भी चल जाएगी कि कैसे कैसे लगानी चाहिए. ठीक है. नाउ दैट यू हैव अ होल्ड ऑन योर स्पीड, नेक्स्ट थिंग आपको जो फोकस करना है इज बेसिकली द मॉक इंटरव्यूज. सो जब आप एक्चुअल इंटरव्यू में जाते हो, वहां पर आपके पास इंटरव्यूअर भी होता है, एंड आपको अकेले अकेले नहीं क्वेश्चन सॉल्व करना है, आपको अपने इंटरव्यूअर के साथ भी कम्युनिकेशन करना है, उसको भी क्लियर होना चाहिए आप कहाँ पर हो, कहाँ पर नहीं हो. एंड वो एनवायरमेंट की आपको आदत होनी चाहिए कि कोई और पर्सन भी वहीं पर ही होगा जब आप अपना क्वेश्चन कर रहे होगे, जो शायद आपसे चीजें पूछेगा या आपको गाइड करने की कोशिश करेगा, या शायद आपको कंफ्यूज करने की भी कोशिश करेगा. ठीक है. सो उस एनवायरनमेंट की भी आपको आदत होनी चाहिए. सो फॉर दैट आपको जो है प्रैक्टिस करना स्टार्ट करना चाहिए. सबसे फर्स्ट चीज दैट यू नीड टू फोकस ऑन इज थिंकिंग आउट लाउड. तो जब आप क्वेश्चन कर रहे हो, वेदर यू आर डूइंग इट अलोन और यू आर प्रैक्टिसिंग विद समवन, try to speak everything that you are doing. Like, for example, if you are solving a question and you are stuck somewhere, you can start talking about it. Okay, so right now I'm thinking about this approach. So I have thought about this approach, but this is not solving this constraint. So I'm thinking about this approach as well. So it is solving this problem, but I am stuck in this part. So I'm assuming that this would work in this way, or I could have a sorted array in this way. And then later on, अगर आप आगे चल रहे हो, assumptions कर लिया आपने, okay, I have written the code. Right now I'm thinking about this part, so I thought it worked in my approach, but right now I'm not able to write the code for it. So you can just talk about whatever you are doing. In this way, आप it does not just help the interviewer, ये आपको सबसे ज्यादा हेल्प करता है, बिकॉज समटाइम इट हैपेंस जब आप कहीं पर स्टक हो, एंड जब आप उस चीज को बोल रहे हो, आपको बोलते बोलते ही चीजें रियलाइज हो जाती है कि अच्छा मैं कहाँ स्टक हूँ, या मैं क्या कर रहा था या मैं नहीं कर रहा था, एंड आप शायद नर्वस भी कम होते हो जब आप चीजें बोल रहे हो. ठीक है. सो आपको थिंकिंग आउट लाउड करना है ऑल द टाइम. सारे क्वेश्चंस में आप ये चीज अप्लाई करना स्टार्ट करो कि हमेशा बोलते रहो क्या करो क्या करो, फिर आपकी अपनी हैबिट में ही ये चीज आ जाएगी. ठीक है। नेक्स्ट थिंग आपको जो फोकस करना है वो एनवायरनमेंट क्रिएट करना है कि बेसिकली इंटरव्यूअर आपके साथ उस रूम में प्रेजेंट होगा जिसकी पर्सनैलिटी बहुत डिफरेंट हो सकती है। सो वो एनवायरनमेंट क्रिएट करने के लिए यू कैन रीच आउट टू योर सीनियर्स और योर फ्रेंड्स हु कैन प्रैक्टिस विद यू, हु कैन बी द इंटरव्यूअर फॉर यू, who can ask out the questions, who can create different environment. It could be a friendly environment, it could be a very time constraining environment, or it could be an interviewer who is confusing you, or it could be an interviewer who is very much supporting you, giving you a number of hints. So you should be able to perform good in all these environments. Every environment would have their own challenges, and इस तरीके से आप prepared रहोगे हर टाइप के इंटरव्यू के लिए, बिकॉज अलग अलग कंपनीज की ही अलग अलग राउंड्स में जो है अलग अलग टाइप का एनवायरनमेंट क्रिएट हो सकता है। हर एक इंटरव्यूअर की पर्सनैलिटी बहुत अलग होती है। दैट इज अगर आप भी अलग अलग एनवायरनमेंट में प्रैक्टिस करोगे तो आप हर एक एनवायरनमेंट के लिए बहुत रेडी रहोगे। ठीक है। इसके अलावा आप जो है वो मॉक इंटरव्यूज ऑनलाइन देख सकते हो, वहां पर आप थोड़े को की पॉइंटर्स आपको मिल जाएंगे, वहां पर आपको डूज एंड डोंट्स बता देंगे। एंड वो बहुत ही जनरल की पॉइंट्स होते हैं, वो इस टाइप के पॉइंट्स होते हैं जो आप हर एक कंपनी में जो है वो अप्लाई कर सकते हो। ठीक है। सो मॉक इंटरव्यूज की आपको प्रैक्टिस करनी है। Now, the last thing that we really need to focus on is the dry running part. So basically, it is similar to the reviewing part. उसका extension ही है कि जब आप अपना कोड रिव्यू कर चुके हो उसके बाद आपको basically dry run करना है। So what is basically a dry run? So dry run is basically आपको एक टेस्ट केस गिवन है। So normally जब आप अपने कोड एडिटर में करते हो आपको एक टेस्ट केस गिवन होता है, आप जाके उस कोड के अंदर एग्जीक्यूट कर देते हो कोड एडिटर में। So the code editor is executing that test case for you. But in dry run you have to execute that given test case on your own code. ओके सो आपको ड्राई रन हमेशा करना है। हमारे एक्सपीरियंस में हमने बहुत बार देखा है एज एन इंटरव्यूअर कि कई बार लोग जो हैं उन्होंने अप्रोच सही बताई होती है, कोड भी ठीक ठाक करा हुआ होता है, कुछ कुछ प्रॉब्लम्स होती हैं एंड वो जो है उस केस में हमें डायरेक्टली कोड जो है वो सबमिट कर देते हैं विदाउट रिव्यूइंग इट और ड्राई रनिंग इट। एंड उस केस में क्या होता है, कई बार देखो हम जो है उन्हें बता देते हैं कि ओके कैन यू चेक कि ये वाला केस चल रहा है कि नहीं, कैन यू चेक कि दिस केस चल रहा है कि नहीं, कि हम उनको ट्राई करते हैं कि वो खुद ही जो है अपना प्रॉब्लम जो है वो आइडेंटिफाई करके फिक्स कर ले। बट एट टाइम्स सम इंटरव्यूअर माइट जस्ट सबमिट इट एंड आपको लग सकता है कि शायद उन्होंने वो एरर नहीं देखी है या उन्होंने सबमिट कर लिया तो उसका मतलब सही ही होगा। बट ऐसा कभी नहीं होता। ऐसा कभी भी नहीं होगा कि इंटरव्यूअर ने नहीं देखा होगा कि आपने ये टेस्ट केस मिस कर दिया है। हमेशा उनको पता होगा एंड आपके लिए वो एक अच्छा केस नहीं होगा कि आपका कोड जो है वो विद एरर जो है वो सबमिट होगा। ठीक है। सो हमेशा आपको खुद ही ड्राई रन करना है, चाहे आपको इंटरव्यूअर ने बोला हो या नहीं बोला हो। अगर वो आपका सबमिशन ले भी रहे होंगे यू कैन जस्ट टॉक टू देम, ओके लेट मी ड्राई रन फ्यू केसेस इन दिस कोड फर्स्ट एंड देन आई विल सबमिट द कोड। ओके सो अब आपको ड्राई रन करना कैसे है। सो ये एक अप्रोच हमने देखी है कि कैंडिडेट्स क्या करते हैं कि जब हम उन्हें ड्राई रन करने के लिए देते हैं, हमने कहा कि ओके दिस इज द टेस्ट केस टू द ड्राई रन, एंड व्हाट दे वुड डू इज कि ओके मेरी अप्रोच के अकॉर्डिंग फर्स्ट आइटरेशन के बाद ये हो जाएगा, सेकंड आइटरेशन के बाद ये हो जाएगा, थर्ड आइटरेशन के बाद ये हो जाएगा एंड ये रहा आपका आंसर। बट ड्राई रन ऐसे नहीं करना है आपको, अपनी अप्रोच पे ड्राई रन नहीं करना है आपको, कोड पे ड्राई रन करना है। ओके सो यू हैव टू गो थ्रू योर कोड लाइन बाय लाइन। आप एक एक कोड पे जाओ, एक्चुअली में देखो कि आपके कोड से जो है एक आइटरेशन के बाद क्या चेंज हो रहा है आपके टेस्ट केस में, क्या रिजल्ट आ रहा है। ठीक है। अपनी अप्रोच के दिमाग में जो आपने अप्रोच सोच रखी है उस पे नहीं, आपने जो पेपर पे कोड लिखा है आपको उस पे एग्जीक्यूट करना है। ठीक है, क्योंकि वही आप एक्चुअली में सबमिट कर रहे हो। ठीक है। तो लाइन बाय लाइन आपने कोड देखा है, उसके बाद आपको जो है एज केसेस पे जो है वो फोकस करना है। ठीक है। आप कौन कौन से टेस्ट केसेस चूज करते हो इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, एंड एज यू आर प्रैक्टिसिंग आपको ध्यान रखना है कि आप नंबर ऑफ टेस्ट केसेस पर जो है करो। स्टार्टिंग में जब आप प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हो आप बहुत सारे टेस्ट केसेस पे करो, बट धीरे धीरे जैसे जैसे आप और ज्यादा प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हो फोकस करो कि आपको कितने टेस्ट केसेस पर रन करना है, सो दैट यू आर एबल टू फोकस ऑन जस्ट द की टेस्ट केसेस, बिकॉज इंटरव्यू में आपके पास इतना टाइम नहीं होगा कि आप बहुत सारे टेस्ट केसेस पे करो। ठीक है। तो जब आप प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हो स्टार्टिंग में आप बहुत सारे टेस्ट केसेस पे करो, धीरे धीरे थोड़ा ऑप्टिमाइज करो कि आप अपना ड्राई रन का साइकिल जो है वो छोटा कैसे कर सकते हो कि आपको इंटरव्यू में प्रॉब्लम ना आए। ठीक है। एंड द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग इन ड्राई रनिंग इज बेसिकली आइडेंटिफाइंग एंड फिक्सिंग द बग बाय योरसेल्फ। इट इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट ट्रेट एंड इसको बहुत ही पॉजिटिवली देखते हैं इंटरव्यूअर ही कि यू आर एबल टू आइडेंटिफाई द बग्स बाय योरसेल्फ, उन्हें बताने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ी। सो इवन इन केस अगर आप फ्यूचर में किसी कंपनी में जा भी रहे हो और आप मिस्टेक्स करते भी हो, यू आर एबल टू आइडेंटिफाई देम एंड फिक्स बाय योरसेल्फ, व्हिच इज ऑब्वियसली अ वेरी पॉजिटिव थिंग। सो ये उसको बहुत पॉजिटिवली देखा जाता है। सो पैनिक नहीं करना है अगर आपके कोड में कुछ प्रॉब्लम होती है एंड आपको ड्राई रन के टाइम पे कुछ प्रॉब्लम मिलती है, वो कोई नेगेटिव नहीं है कि अच्छा मैंने मिस्टेक कर दी अब मेरे लिए प्रॉब्लम हो जाएगा, शायद ये मेरा राउंड क्लियर ना हो या ऐसा कुछ। तो ऐसा कुछ नहीं होता है, मिस्टेक्स हर कोई कर सकता है। इंपॉर्टेंट है कि आप इसको आइडेंटिफाई खुद से कर पाए कि नहीं और फिक्स कर पाएगी। Okay, so guys, these are basically the main key pointers on how you can prepare for the technical interviews. And just know, जब आप बहुत अच्छे से technical interview के लिए prepare करते हो, it shows up in the interview. Interviewer को भी दिखता है, आपका वो confidence दिखता है कि हाँ इस इंसान ने सारी चीजें practice करी हैं. And even if a new questions comes to your way, जिसका आपको कोई idea नहीं है, शायद आपने कभी भी नहीं सुना, तो भी आप panic नहीं करोगे because आपने अच्छे से preparation करी है. आपके अंदर वो अपने आप से कॉन्फिडेंस होता है एंड आप ऑन द वे जो है शायद इसके लिए अप्रोच भी ढूंढ पाओगे एंड वो सोल्यूशन भी लेके आ पाओगे. ठीक है, सो प्रिपरेशन इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. Okay, so now I'll pass the control over back to Nikita so that we can move to the next topic.
Thanks, Priya. So, guys, the key takeaway of this section is brush up the concepts, practice, 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 and dry run and test your code. Right? Definitely, as we say, practice makes a man perfect. Practicing is a key to success in the selection process. So, do you guys think that you're practicing enough? या अभी और प्रैक्टिस की जरूरत है? See, learning is never ending, and as much as you learn, it will only help you get better every day, right? So the crux is never stop practicing and learning. सो बहुत बार ऐसा होता है दैट वी माइट बी कंप्लीटली टेक्निकली प्रिपेयर्ड, बट जैसे ही हम इंटरव्यू रूम में जाते हैं समथिंग समहाउ गोज अनएक्सपेक्टेड. हम सोचते हैं यार हम तो बहुत अच्छे से टेक्निकली प्रिपेयर्ड थे, व्हाट वेंट रॉन्ग, व्हाई डिडंट वी गेट सिलेक्टेड, राइट? व्हाई डज दैट हैपन? इज प्रिपेयरिंग फॉर द प्रोसेस इनफ, या कुछ और भी ऐसी चीजें हैं दैट वी नीड टू वर्क अपॉन? So let's understand from Alicia what are those key essentials that are required to do well in the tech interviews. Okay, over to you, Alicia.
Okay, yeah, all right. Thank you, Nikita. So, yes, we talked in how to prepare, about what all things we can take care of when we are preparing. Now, let's get back to our focus to the interview process, that 2 to 3 hour process we are having. So, how we can, make it do well? What are the small to make points which we should take care that will help us to pull up a good interview process from a perspective of candidate, or what you can do. So starting with the interview, it starts with your introduction, your like you start. So always I personally prefer, I really like, and like lets a small smile on my face when I go for an interview and my candidate greets me. So it is like you have started on a good note, and it is good that you should always start your conversation with a little greeting and then starting your introduction about yourself. Now what should I say in my introduction? Most important thing in your introduction is to keep it brief and crisp. Like, they already, most of the time interviewers already have your resume with them, they have gone through your academics and other things. So when you're talking or you're giving any introduction, so always try to make it little personal, something which is not added in your resume. Maybe it could be your personal journey, any achievement you have made, you have really passionate about something, maybe coding questions, you are too much practiced too much. What is your interest? It could be non-technical also, so try to keep it like very limited to 3 to 4 lines, and try to share something which is not in your resume as such. So yes, so keeping the introduction brief, this is actually, guys, very very important. Initially आप 10-15 मिनट अपना introduction दोगे where you have already covering everything in resume, that is not really very good use of time actually. So make sure that you always start with your introduction, but with keeping it little brief only. Now the next aspect which makes your interview really really can good is to be a good listener. Now what happens is that you come across a new person and you are going to have some discussion around it. So the whole purpose of this process of interview is that interviewer want to hire you. He needs to see some some positive points in you, so that he can take a call from you. So they are very supportive, they might give you hints while you're in the process. So always try to be a good listener in the process. Do be attentive, listen to the question carefully, right? And let the other person complete. Do not panic at that point. Be very open minded, like listen carefully what they're saying. If there is a question, it says a sorted array, read the question again and again. Use that fact given to you. Ask any questions if you have, like suppose there is a question about a tree. you do not know whether it has a negative number or not, and it impacts your solution. So ask question, do not just like make assumption, always validate your assumptions, state your assumptions, so that you both are in the same page. So it is a very safe trick to always speak much and validate your assumptions. So what next we can do to do well in an interview is your plan your approach. Okay, now what is planning your approach means? So basically, when a problem statement is given to you, do not like when you've got the problem, going to a solution, then to another, and you are stuck in all those approaches. Always work in a planned manner. So I'll be further giving you an example of like how I can break you can break a question in an interview. So we'll talk more about planning your approach then, uh, right? And then next would be thinking out loud. Yes, so Priya just as mentioned, uh, thinking out loud means you always talk when you are even thinking your approach, your algorithm, you're writing your solution. Now why it is important guys, ये इसलिए सबसे ज़्यादा important है, especially in these online interviews. The point is you are not physically present into the same space, both of you guys are not present at the same space. So it is difficult for interviewer to interpret what you are doing, right? At times you might be using paper and pen, but in when you are in a same space in a room, they can see to your paper and understand how you are doing. But this is a disadvantage of being in online world here. So that is why I'll again stress and ask you guys to please always think out loud, like to always speak as you are writing or thinking something. uh, right, that yes, my first brute force approach would be this and this. Now this has a problem, it is taking more space. How I can reduce? I can use a stack, I can use do that. No, this is not working, how I can do? So in this way the interviewer also understand what direction you are moving, and it helps that interviewer also to guide you in that direction. So it is a very advantageous thing to do, think out loud. So please try to use that when you're practicing for any interview. This will be a very very positive for you. Next would be keeping the big picture in mind. Now what does this mean? This means that when you're trying to solve a problem, do not get stuck on a point. Now okay, let me give an example. हमारे पास एक question है which is for a tree. Okay, so tree है तो we have to traverse it. Now what would be my traversal? I think कि इसमें ना in order traversal लगेगा. ठीक है, and you are stuck to find a solution with that in order traversal. Actually guys, think, focus on not on the tree but on the problem you're trying to solve. Will that, you have to think of that bigger picture. हाँ मेरी ये problem है, I have to solve this problem. Will my this approach be able to help me in solving that problem? So always think about the complete solution. Think on what problem you're trying to solve. Do not get stuck कि हाँ मुझे in order लगाना है तो मैं अब loop कैसे लिखूंगा. Solve problem step by step. All right, and always try to solve the main problem. Now what happens, ठीक है, I have a problem. Let's continue this previous example guys, जिसमें we have this tree. अब मैंने इन ऑर्डर देखा, मैंने देखा कि यार ये तो प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व नहीं कर रहा है. डू नॉट प्लीज स्टार्ट पैनिकिंग, या नहीं यार अब मैं क्या करूँ, टाइम हैव बीन स्पेंड, ऐसा नहीं है. Relax, take a minute, relax, and then step back, read the question again. Maybe you have not used everything given to you know so step back, think what approach I did. Yes, my loop, my this traversal is not working. Okay, what more traversals I have? And then start building your solution. So the most important thing is you have to keep moving, like motivation we talked earlier. You have to step back and find the solution here. You have to keep yourself motivated. It is a very positive factor when I don't have to say my to my candidate, do not panic, please relax, go back, think again. These are the things which I'll say to encourage you, but if you know beforehand, you can do it yourself, and that gives a very positive impact to the other. Okay, so next is something we have talked a lot, is your test your code and dry run. Yes, this is very very important. So when you give a approach also, we discuss, okay, how will approach work, right? And then we try to solve it by some examples. Similarly, when you write a code, usually most of the candidates are in habit of yes, I'm done. And when even when they check, they are always in their mind checking that the same language which they have used while doing the approach batate time they have given us, but they do not really check their code. Like you have written, if there is a double equal to sign and you're using single equal to, that code will fail actually, guys. So whenever you are done with your code, always try to make a habit that you dry run your code, not the approach, what is written, what you have written. So every problem has two sets. One is trying to figure out the approach, and then converting that approach to a code that will actually solve your problem. So testing your code, dry running is a is something which helps you complete the whole problem. Always dry run your approach also and your code also, and do that aspect, like not your approach. When you're when you're dry running your code, focus on code, not on approach. Forget about it. You have already converted to a code. Okay, all right. Next, what we talk here is okay. Plan your time. Now, this is what I was telling you again previously when I said that we'll talk now. How do you plan your approach? So let's take an example. You have a simple question given to you. First, always try to spend time with the question, understanding what would be the output and observing some pattern out of it in some cases is the most important thing. Your question could be direct, a few facts might be given to you, or a question could be indirect in terms of a worded problems. So I'll suggest try and practice both of the aspects here. Okay, try and initially spend a few minutes only in understanding question without thinking what would be the time complexity I need to solve this in, or what would be the my approach, how will I write code for it. No, first understand your problem from fully, like what exactly you are trying to solve. Your next point should be to first always figure out a brute force approach. Now that okay, what is brute force approach? Brute force approach is anything which comes to you as a first. It doesn't has to be optimized. For example, you are having any tree or any graph traversal. It can be exponential. It should be exponential. That is how we solve problems, right? First we try to solve it in this. Yes, इसको solve हम ऐसे कर लेंगे. But now then we move to making it to be an optimized. Then figure out what my problem is with this. Why it is taking so much time, then move on to optimize it, maybe in terms of space and time complexity. So this is how you solve your problem. You always first understand your question, then try to have an approach out of it, which could be brute force. Feel free to always talk about your brute force also to your interview. That gives them the insight, like what is your thought process, how you are dealing with the problem. And then you slowly with multiple iterations, feel free to do the multiple iterations to finally come to your optimized solution. And then the last part comes here is your code. Then you write your code, uh, check your dry test cases you have, like different edge cases you have, check the syntax you have written, check for the redundancy you have in the code might have, optimize it in that sense, and then dry run it, and then dry run that and test your code. Now, dry run is something which you should focus a lot, because what happens is when we do practice, we usually follow all these online sites which have a runner for them, and you can simply, you don't even at times look at the test cases. You click a button and you get yes, your question is right or wrong. I think during practice you should focus, because on actually that process of evaluating whether whether your output is correct or not, because this is what you usually do in your interview process. Moreoverly, not just interview, this is how we work daily. When we are in a business, in professional life further, what we do is we are given some problems. We have to develop certain features. The problem is given to us, we find solution to it, and then we code it, and then we test it. When we test, it is not always like running through some compiler and getting the output. You have to, first step is always to test it at your level, which is we call as dry running. So if you'll start building this habit right away, this will help you in your interview process, not just interview, but also ahead in your career process. So this is how you plan your approach during an interview. This is how we break up. And here right now you can see there is a this time breakup given to you. So One important disclaimer I'll just add right now is that please do not bind yourself to this time given to us. It's just an example for medium level question we have shared. First of all, try to break your approach into this structure or something else, maybe if you want to devise it. But always plan your approach and then time bound each and every part. As you will practice, you will get better. Try to do the same for any question, and then it will come naturally to you when you are in an interview process. We all want to be more organized, and these all aspects, the interview process is just similar to what thing you will face in your professional life ahead. That is why we have this interview process. Most of the companies, core software developer companies, look for a process where they give you some data structure or algorithm problem, and look for some look for how you deal with it, like how you solve that. So use this just as an approximation, build that time limits for yourself, and then try to improve that with during your practice sessions. So yes, this is a very very important aspect which you can do. Next would be, now that we have talked about what all different things we can do, we can start with a good introduction. We have to be very attentive when we are in the interview, listen carefully. Then how you can plan your approach in your for a question in your interview. Now these, like the process by process, we have discussed what all steps are there, but apart from that there is a one more thing which is actually very important for you in your interview, is your basically attitude. How that shows your personality to the interviewer, and why it is so important, why do we judge based on that, is because this will actually help you in your professional career. So daily you will have some one or another problem to look into it and solve it. That is what we do in as a software developers. We try to build solutions, right? So this your attitude is very important. First and the foremost thing is not to ever give up. Be very very positive. You have practiced. It is very difficult that you will get any of the practice question. Always expect that you will get something new kind of question. So build your concepts, understand what the problem says. Do not give up at like looking at the linked list question. Oh, I have not really practiced the W linked list. But what is W linked list? It is just a list with some extra conditions given to it. You, if you have practiced, you understand linked list, you can actually build the solution at the point. I have basically, experienced it myself 7 years back when I was on your side. When I was a candidate, I have actually solved a problem which I was, when like I was discussing after interview with my friends, I was not able to give, but with the help from my interviewer, I was able to solve that. So always have a very positive attitude, like yes I can do, give another shot. Do not give up on an interview. This is a very very important point that you should keep in mind. Practice that with each of your question you are doing, and then next point is to be confident, right? So by not giving up, you are showing your confidence, you're showing your trust in your abilities, which indirectly make us as an interviewer to trust in yours. So it is a very very good and positive trait to be confident. And then second is to be courteous. Now you should be very you cannot be rude to your interviewer. At times we can get panic. We are scared. My first question was given to me. I tried. I spent 1 hour, but I was not able to find the solution. And then I have come to the second question, which is on based on a data structure which I'm most comfortable with. But then again, I am still stuck in my first question that I was not able to do. Do not obsess over the output right now. Deal with the current problem. Don't be rude. Be very calm. Do not panic and respect somebody, the person who's sitting in front of you. And next would be, yes, be patient. Yes, be patient, be present in the moment. Try to solve that second problem rather than getting obsessed and being really scared about not able to do that first one. That is why we have a multiple questions, because we give you multiple chances here. We do not just simply judge you on a single questions. So that is why we have multiple rounds also. Always show like it is moreover like you're trying to show some quality in yourself which interviewer can pick, and this will help you further. So that is why we have multiple rounds, guys, and you have multiple opportunity. Try to show one or the other trait in each of the interview, and getting the solution correct and always is not important. It is important, but not always. Like that should not affect your other part of the interview. So keep that in mind. This will really help you to perform better during your interview. So last aspect, this will be my last aspect, which is more of like a closure to any interview process, is that uh, it is very good and it is an opportunity for you as a candidate to, you should always ask questions from your interviewer. The question could be about the company, right? What do they expect of the role? What is their hiring? What is their expectation from the role they are hiring for? That will give you a better understanding that whether that company is fit for you or not, and whether you are fit for the company or not. Like what kind of induction process would be, what will happen to you once you join, how will you adjust in that culture. You should always ask such questions that will help you understand your role, what you are getting yourself into, what how do I work there, right? And what is my career growth, and how can I progress. There could be what is a work culture here. So it is always very good to ask questions from your interview. Feel free to talk to them about anything. It could be, do not think whether its question is a stupid question or not, but just feel free to question. That shows your curiosity also, you know. And you can discuss this with your interviews in the technical interview also, and most of the time you have those HR rounds, so you can talk about these things there also. So these are basically a few points keeping in mind. You can actually perform well. Try to inculcate these in your practice sessions with each question, so you can build all these skills. That will really help you to do well in any of the technical interview. Over to you, Nikita.
Thank you, Alicia. Guys, please maintain the decorum of the webinar. We are receiving some unnecessary messages. So you all are requested to please maintain the decorum and do not send such messages in the chat box. Okay. So I hope आप सबको ये session समझ आया होगा, and it was an informative and insightful session for you all. Excelling in the tech interviews required not just preparation and coding skills, but a lot of practice, a lot of planning, brushing up your basics, being attentive, paying attention to details, and having a right thought process, and a lot more. Okay, I hope you all were able to extract out meaningful things from the session. We have been receiving a lot of questions, and I think you must be having a lot of questions in mind as well. So now we will be starting with the panel discussion, wherein we will be taking up your queries. So anything that is not related to the webinar, we would skip it. Also, anything that's duplicate or already covered in the webinar, we would skip it. Okay, so let's get started with it.